yes, I remember it all. Swear the hype be too tall, yeah. So like September I fall down below. Now I know that the medicine be on call, yeah. Just feeling like you hot enough to melt, yeah. Can't trust no one, can't even trust yourself, yeah. And I love you, I don't love nobody else, yeah. Tell them they can take that bullshit elsewhere.
Welcome in to the IDP Fantasy Empire, the Coliseum of Fantasy Knowledge. This week we are getting done with our divisional lineups, and we are finishing with the NFC West, going out there to Seattle and Arizona, San Francisco, and the Rams, the LA Rams. So got a nice one. Then we're also going to be coming out of their X and O podcast later tonight, and then we'll be posting that for our premium guys. Guys, subscribe. If you need to subscribe, I'd get on it now. Go to our website, idpfantasyempire.com. Hit that subscribe button, $5.99, get you 12 months.
You've also got our draft kit. It's going to be available in the store. You can find our store at idpfantasyempire.com. It's $10 for the draft kit. You'll get every update of the draft kit, and we're going to be working on the next version soon. Yeah,
we've already pumped out the second version for anyone who out there who has ordered it, so you should have gotten the email as well. So we'll keep those coming to you throughout training camp.
Where you want to start, Paul?
Let's go to San
Francisco. All right, the leading tackler was Dante Johnson with 77 total tackles. Reuben Foster was 72. Eric Reed was 67. Brock Cole was 64. DeForest Buckner, 61. Jaquiski Tart with 55. Ray Armstrong with 54. Kawan Williams, 54. Solomon Thomas, 41. This is really impressive, though, seeing that from him. Navarro Bowman, 38. Adrian Colbert, 37. Eli Harold, 34. Earl Mitchell, 33. Akello Witherspoon, 32. Jimmy Ward, 32. Rashard Robinson, 27. And there's a big drop-off. Sack leader was DeForest Buckner with 3. And Solomon Thomas with 3. That is actually terrible stats. When have we ever seen a sack leader at 3?
Not very often.
I think this is the lowest one we've seen.
I think, out all the teams so far, I'm pretty sure that's the lowest.
Interceptions, this is also another low stat. There are 3 people tied for 2. You've got Eric Reed, Ray Armstrong, a guy who's in a tier all of his own. And you've also got Akello Witherspoon. Akello Witherspoon coming out of Colorado, I believe.
Yep.
Played on the opposite side of Cheeto Bay Awuzie. But yeah, a lot of returning studs, a lot of guys that are gone. Or playing out of position. You got Eric Reed, who is supposed to be the nickelbacker now. You've also got Ray Armstrong, who should be healthy, playing a backup role. You got Fred Warner coming in. And you've also got Navarro Bowman, who's gone. So it's going to add plenty of potential for the 49ers. We'll go ahead and start with you, Paul, on the defensive line.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the teams that I look at it on paper, and I have literally said to myself while doing it, this may be the most interesting defensive line in the league that we've done so far. And the reason is because all the first-round picks we have in this line. We have 3 out of 4 were all first-round picks in consecutive years. You have Armstead, who was a 2015 first-rounder. You have DeForest Buckner, who was a 2016. And then, of course, Solomon Thomas, the last draft, the 2017 draft. To me, that's so much draft pedigree. The problem has been Armstead has not been healthy. I think he's played 14 games out of the last 2 seasons, so they're really looking for him. And then I just read, I guess today, and he's week to week now in training camp with basically a tight leg, so they're kind of babying that too. So that's something that literally just happened yesterday. But I love this defensive line, and another piece that I want to throw out there is Kendavia Street, who they drafted this year. In case anyone who doesn't know, we talked about him in our rookie premier draft, which we talked about again. If you subscribe, you can listen to it. That was one of the guys who played opposite of Bradley Chubb, so he's not as hyped. He didn't get as hyped, but that guy's got
a motor.
Yeah, he's got a great motor, and I think he honestly is, I'm not going to say as good, but he's a guy who wasn't talked about, but he has really good stats from college.
Yeah.
And I think the guy can play about anywhere.
Yeah. That being said, one of the things that I didn't like about Kendavia Street was his limited pass rush moves. I think that's something that he needs to work on. And we covered that again, like Paul said, in our premium draft kit or premium podcast. real quick, jumping into our premium podcast, you're going to get every rookie at every position, and you're going to have podcasts for the next 12 months. All those are going to be deep dives. It's going to be those guys that need extra help and deep waiver wires and stuff like that. We break down football a little bit deeper. In these podcasts, we just try and appeal to the common fan. If you're looking for something more, that's definitely up your alley. And you're also going to be getting knowledge about these players. One thing that Paul is really good at is Paul will go ahead and bring up information about a player, their behavior, the way their grades were, medical or felony problems that they may have.
Basically, if they played at Florida, I pretty much covered all the stuff. Either injury history or trouble with the law.
A lot of that is valuable, and it's really hard to find it all in one spot. So,
yeah, and then that, I don't know if we're done. Are you done with the defensive line, or do you want to mention some stuff? I think Solomon Thomas is going to take a bigger leap this year, which already had great tackle numbers last year.
Yeah, 41.
It's just the sacks have to come up. In this division, I feel like when you play Seattle, you should be almost guaranteed at least 2 sacks a game.
Yeah.
For how their offensive line is. The Rams, they're going to be more difficult. But again, I just go with the 2 games a year. And with Arizona, I feel like their line is okay, but I feel like with this much talent in that front line, they're finally all coming to their own. And if Eric Armstead's finally healthy, I don't see why this can't be one of the best straight line starters in the league.
I think the Minnesota Vikings hands down have the best.
Well, okay, all right. I don't include them and stuff, all right? But I don't see why I wouldn't want to watch this defensive line.
Right.
I feel like they have a lot of potential to be super nasty.
Right, and they do have a history of having a great defensive line. This year, it looks like they're switching over to a 4-3. That's going to free up a lot of those linebackers who are going to have more opportunities to make tackles. You've got Solomon Thomas, who's really the only fantasy-relevant player that I've got on my watch list right now. As a defensive tackle, DeForest Buckner is a decent add. He's going to be top 20 defensive tackles in the season. So I think there's a lot of value with DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, but I'm not running to the waiver wire or to the draft to pick up these guys. That being said, I think they're going to be 2 situational players, spelling Solomon Thomas and Eric Armstead. That's going to be Jeremy Atachu. We saw him in San Diego and LA. And then you've also got Cassius Marsh, who's played in New England. He's played in Seattle. The guy's a journeyman, and he's going to continue to get snaps. He's going to be a special teamer. And he may be one of those guys, if one of these guys get injured, he's going to slide right in just because of his knowledge and the amount of snaps that he's got at the pro level. Jumping right into the linebackers, the strong side linebacker, we've got Eli Harold. I think he fits that role. I don't necessarily see a lot of competition there. A lot of people may say Fred Warner should slide over, being that smaller linebacker. I don't necessarily see that. Reuben Foster has the Mike linebacker spot solidified. We will come back to Foster and talk about all the legal issues. I do just want to quickly talk about Malcolm Smith. Malcolm Smith is one of those guys that is highly underrated, and he's going to be a tackle stud throughout the season. I think these 2 linebackers can get numbers like Quan Alexander and Levante David. Not a huge fan of Malcolm Smith as a football player. I think he is a better fantasy asset than a football player. But we talk about this defensive line, and what does that mean when it translates to fantasy? What that means is you've got 4 down linemen who are tying up offensive linemen as they come to approach those linebackers. And they open up these 3 linebackers to knife in and go get that tackle. On that strong side, you've got Eli Harold, and his job is to blow up the tight end or the fullback and pretty much cover the flats if he's needed. Malcolm Smith, the weak side on the 4-3, is the guy that I like to target whenever I'm first looking at guys throughout the entire NFL. So him falling into this place absolutely lines up with what we saw in Oakland and his tackle numbers and the system and the scheme. It all fits for Malcolm Smith. Now, I'll let you go ahead and take Reuben Foster. We both think he's a stud. There's a lot of risk here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of risk over the offseason, as probably most of us know, I'd hope. He had his girlfriend, I don't know if they're still together or not, I haven't found that out, but She said he had domestic violence and he got arrested because he had a gun on him and just some other stuff. They've gotten the gun charges pretty much down to minimal probation. And then basically the girlfriend recanted. She said, she made it up, which had kind of been the story all along, that it was made up. So what, did he actually officially get suspended? I don't think so. We don't know for sure. I feel like if anything, he may get 2 games, but I think that's a stretch. And I don't think he should be suspended since it's a non-issue. And a lot of people in our league think I traded him because I was afraid of the legal issues, because I did trade him. To be honest, I wanted to trade him because I knew I could get the value, and I want potential value in somewhere else, and I'll take the risk. It was a 2-game? Mm-hmm. All right, that's what I thought. I thought it was a 2-gamer. But Reuben Foster, I think, is a great talent. I honestly think minus the 2 games may hurt him a little bit in the final finishings, but he can easily finish top 15 linebacker. And the guy has the talent. It's just the risk factor. And I'm talking, dynasty aspect, what you want to hold on to. But again, the points are going to be there. Since he suspended that first 2, I would honestly look at him maybe starting Fred Warner. I don't know if I like Brock Coyle anymore. I mean, that's been the thing, but those 2 are competing for reps. I watched one of their training camps today, and I think it's going to be those 2 guys jockeying to see who starts in that middle position. They could also bring over Corey Toomer if they really wanted to, but I feel like might as well give the young guy a shot and see what he has. Because other than that, they know what they're going to be missing Reuben Foster. They missed him last year with his ankle injury.
All right, you mentioned Reuben Foster's potential as top 15. So where are you going to be drafting him?
Well, with the 2 games, I take a little bit off, so that'd be a half a round for me. So I'd still take him in a 10-team. I'd probably still take him third round.
3rd round?
Yeah.
That would mean that 14 or 15 guys would have to be leaving in the first 3 rounds. I don't think that many linebackers are going to be leaving.
I just like him. I mean, it's one of those guys that I would take high.
So you take him at a premium?
Yeah.
Okay. I would try and take him at a discount below his price and his potential, just because I'm okay with missing out on a guy like this. This is one of those high-risk, high-reward guys, but he was often injured in college. He's got a lot of legal problems, and I really don't know if he's got his head screwed on straight.
Well, I mean, if we're talking redraft, I don't see why you wouldn't have the value there, though. I don't know how many people are going to let him fall super deep.
I would rather wait on Malcolm Smith and take Malcolm Smith and say 10-team, 20-round, take him in the 15th round. Because he's going to fall. He was injured all last season, so his numbers aren't going to be there.
It's a good point. I like it. That's not decent thinking. Honestly, I don't really know Malcolm Smith. I didn't really know him anyway.
Their tackle numbers are going to be damn near similar. If given a full body of work, 16 games.
Okay.
Reuben Foster, of course, if he's out, if he's missing time, Malcolm Smith's going to have more tackles. But he is highly underrated right now, and nobody's talking about him on Twitter, on Facebook, anything.
Well, now they are. They will be after this show. All right, we want to go into the secondary? All right, on that left side, we got Richard Sherman coming over and playing for Crabtree's sorry old team. And then behind him is Greg Mabin. Then you have at strong safety, you have Jaquez Tart. Behind him, Tre'Davious Powell, or Tyvis Powell. At free safety, you have Adrian Colbert. And then behind him, you have Tre'Davious Moore, who is a rookie drafted in the 3rd round. On the right side, you have Witherspoon. And then behind him, Quan Williams. And then at that nickel, you have Jimmy Ward. Behind him, DJ Reed, who was a 5th-round pick out of K-State. Just throwing that in there. For this secondary...
Was Reed a linebacker?
No, DJ Reed used to be safety.
No, that's correct.
Yeah. DJ Reed's thing that really dropped him to the 5th was lack of interceptions. I think he's a good corner. I think nickelback's actually a good spot for him. He's a little bit of more of a bodied type of cornerback than a necessarily like a physique or finesse type of guy. He's more of a get in your face and hit you type of person. For the safeties is the ones that I look at. I love Adrian Colbert. I think this guy is primed to have a very explosive year, and I feel like he's going to have a very good year. I see him in the same light that I saw Justin Simmons when he started last year. I like Colbert. We actually talked to him about him in our Positional Battles podcast. I just really like this guy. Now there's really no competition down there. Tre'Davious Moore was okay at Southern Mississippi, but he's not a guy who I think is going to overtake that at all unless there's an injury. But I really like Colbert, man. I think the guy has a lot of good stuff. Whenever he played last year, he had a higher rating than Jimmy Ward did when he was playing back there. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why they moved him to nickelback. I love the guy. I think he's really primed to be a very good safety this year.
Yeah. Okay, so we talk about the bias that we have as cornerbacks on Richard Sherman, the Patrick Petersons, the Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, all these guys. Do you think Richard Sherman has lost a step?
I don't know. He was hurt last year, so I don't know what to expect.
Right, really with an Achilles injury.
Yeah, it really depends on how he's going to come back. I mean, I think he's looked decent so far in camp, but I mean, it's just they're not going full out.
He has been getting roasted, and a lot of people are talking about that. But the guy that he was filmed against was Marcus Goodwin, 4'3" sprinter. Richard Sherman, for me, he needs a lot of help from the safety coverage. I would typically say go Akelo Witherspoon because they're going to be throwing away from Sherman, but I think there's plenty of opportunity to get tackles on Sherman's side of the ball and as well as Witherspoon. That being said, I think they're going to attack the outside, and this plays more into the Malcolm Smith theory. If they throw to the outside and the cornerback doesn't make the tackle, he can float to that side, assuming that they throw to his side. The safety that I like more than Colbert is Jaquiski Tart. I know we kind of disagree on this, but whenever Jaquiski Tart played 2 seasons ago, he was that hot waiver wire target that I added, and I rode him all the way to a championship. Last season, it's almost like he didn't get snaps consistently, and he never got that opportunity to produce the tackles that he did the year prior. 2 years ago, he was a rookie. So seeing him play at that level as a rookie really kind of piqued my interest in him this year. And, of course, Jimmy Ward playing the nickelback role. I know we talk about the nickelback role, and a lot of these teams are going more towards nickel, about 60% of plays.
Yep.
But he's one of those guys that can be very explosive, can cause turnovers. But I am not sold on drafting a nickelback corner unless there's depletion of every other corner. Mm-hmm. So if looking at the 3 corners, I'm going to take Akelo Witherspoon, Richard Sherman, and then Jimmy Ward.
Okay. And then also, we try to throw an offense every once in a while. Go ahead and draft Dante Pettis probably in your mid to late rounds. He's going to be a value, wide receiver value, and special teams because I guarantee he'll be returning everything.
We talk about offense and we look at the pieces that they added. Do you think this offense becomes more proficient and the defense is on the field less?
I don't know if they're there yet. I mean, Jimmy G-String is, a good quarterback, but I mean, I don't know if the weapons around him are necessarily the best. I mean, you got Pierre Garçon, who, let's be honest, he's older. You have Marquise Goodwin, and then Trent Taylor. I mean, those aren't guys that I'm fearing every day when I go out on the field, if I'm a defender. So I still feel like they're going to have some woes, but, I mean, I feel like their run game is decent. I mean, they added Mike McGinley this year, one of their first-round pick. I think that helps seal up the side that they like to run to, so I'd like to see that. But, I mean, there's just a guy, if I'm in a dynasty, I would take Dante Pettis. I missed out on him barely. But I think Dante Pettis, just from his tape at Washington, the guy can flat-out play, and he's an athlete. I mean, he's one of those sparky guys that I like to watch. And he's got that special teams return value for you because unless something happens and they decide to save him for the field, he's going to be out there. But I don't think this offense is going to be running juggernaut style around everyone. I'm honestly surprised they didn't go after Des Bryant just to get something else in there, just to mix it up.
It'd be a nice fit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Marquise Goodwin just doesn't scare me as a wide receiver.
Oh, that speed scares the hell out of me. 4'3".
Yeah.
Track star. Olympic athlete. No?
I mean, when you got Pierre Garçon on the other side, you're not going to get me excited. I mean, Pierre Garçon's been good because he's tough, but it just doesn't scare me.
I'd rather have Trent Taylor if I'm looking at this offense, just seeing how they used him.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Yeah. What's the next team you want to go
to? How about we go to the desert? Let's go over to Arizona.
Leading tackler for them was Carlos Dansby at 95. Where have we seen that before? This guy is the saltiest linebacker that we probably had last season. I'm sure he's, 39? He's an old dude.
Yeah, he is old.
I'm actually going to be checking on that as we go. Deion Buchanan had 82. Deion Buchanan was hurt the first 4 games. Tyrann Mathieu, who's no longer with the team, was 78. Budda Baker, who's coming in as a rookie, was 74. He missed probably the first 7 or 8 games. They really didn't give him much playing time.
I think it was 7. I think you're right.
He got very little playing time, and then whenever they did bring him in, he was lighting it up. You got Tyvon Branch, a guy that's often overlooked in this defense. Is he still on the team?
I'm looking right now. I don't see him on here.
With 69, he may have been a free agent. Chandler Jones with 59, Antoine Bethea with 57, Tramon Williams with 41, Justin Bethel with 41, Josh Bynes with 36, Hassan Reddick with 36. These may have all come on special teams. I did not get a chance to play him. I drafted him in our Dynasty League, and I was bitter. Patrick Peterson with 34, Olsen Pierre with 30, Frosty Rucker with 29, and Kim Diche with 11. Marcus Golden with 11. Marcus Golden was out the entire season. Actually, not the entire season. He played a little bit. First week of the season, I believe he got hurt because we had a discrepancy in our fantasy league where we talked about Marcus Golden and if he should be listed as a defensive end or an outside linebacker. The guy got it. We went ahead and granted the defensive end eligibility, kind of like a edge rusher. But he ended up losing all the guys that he moved over, which kind of sucks. The number 1 sack leader for the team, there's no question. 17 was Chandler Jones. Number 2, we got 5.5, and that was Olsen Pierre, a guy I'm not really privy on. I don't know if you are, Paul.
Olsen Pierre's a decent player. He's probably not a fantasy stud, but he's a guy who I think the coaching staff really likes. Basically just moving right into the defensive line. I mean, I think Robert Kimdiche and him are competing right now, and I know Kimdiche has not impressed the coaches as much. Like they've been a little bit farther down on him. And Pierre Olsen, if he comes in and keeps playing that well, or Olsen Pierre, sorry, I said that backwards. If he comes in and keeps playing this well, he may have a shot to get a starting the role. I don't know about Corey Peters as much. I didn't see him a lot in Atlanta. Wasn't really watching for him, but Rodney Gunter, I think like this is one of those weird ones where I know you're going to go Kimdiche for sure, but I can see Pierre Olsen putting up some numbers. I don't know if they're going to be fantasy relevant. He may be a 5 to 6 average, on the high side. Yeah. They play a lot of running teams just in their division alone. You got Seattle, Los Angeles, and then San Francisco. So you could probably bolster up a little bit of extra stats for them on that. And I like Marcus Golden on the left defensive inside. I mean, behind him is just Pele Anu. And then you got on the other end, of course, you got Chandler Jones. I mean, the guy I think he's my number 2 or number 3 in our rankings. I can't remember. I think I moved them all around. But, yeah. I mean, the guy has potential to be very, very efficient this year. And this is a new defensive scheme. We literally had to redo it on our draft kit just for Arizona. They're also a team that they're bringing in. Their new defensive coordinator is Al Holcomb. If you don't know who Al Holcomb is, he used to coach at Carolina. He was their linebackers coach for the longest time. So the guy, I think, is going to really play up the linebacker aspect of this team. I feel like that's why Hassan Reddick may start hitting his ceiling fine. Again, he was a rookie last year, but I think this second year may be one of the better step-ups out of all the guys who were rookies last year, besides maybe Barnett. But I easily think that Hassan Reddick is going to take a massive step just because the new defensive coordinator loves his linebackers.
Yeah. Real quick, I want to dive into the defensive line.
Yeah.
Marcus Golden, he's a guy that can get you 10-plus sacks. Him playing as a defensive end is one of those cheats, especially if he's listed as a defensive end in your fantasy league. Pick him up where you can. What I'm thinking is probably top 15, maybe a little bit earlier. He may even finish top 10. And I would not be surprised if Chandler Jones and Marcus Golden both finish top 10. I think this defense can be a top 15 defense points-wise. We've seen Atlanta play exotic defenses, and they have the personnel for it. we talked about Pierre Olsen. Again, I don't know much about him, but I do know Corey Peters. I do know Robert Kimdiche. Both of those guys have the ability to use that pedigree, use the talents that they used in college. Kimdiche is an absolute freak. The biggest problem that we've seen from him is his lack of consistency. Watch him during the preseason games. If you're not an Arizona Cardinals fan, go ahead and take a shot at him. The dude's a freak. Like, he will blow up the guards at the defensive tackle position. And a lot of that comes down to the speed of the game at the NFL level. You've also got Chandler Jones, who destroyed a sled. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was insane, man. I've hit those dummies, and, you know, I'm not like Superman or anything, but just knowing what it takes to destroy one of those things, oh, man, I'm excited to watch the Arizona Cardinals this season. Especially if Robert Kimdiche gets in there, man. I'm going to keep pounding the table. Again, I'm starting to discount him a little bit more and more each day as it passes. But if he has a great preseason like he did last season and goes ahead and makes it without getting injured, I'm going to be snatching him up where I can in every redraft league.
Yeah, and I think it's just take your time and watch what the coaches are saying, because I know they've been disappointed in his play for being a first-round draft pick. So just keep watching.
But
we're going to find out more.
There.
I know, but we're going to find out. And again, a lot of those guys are still retained over.
Right.
Like, they only got rid of like 3, I think, off that defense, besides the defensive coordinator, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that's just watch what they say, because I feel like that builds into it.
Another thing, they did not draft a D tackle.
No, they did not. They didn't really draft anyone on the defense. The only person they drafted was Christian Campbell.
Right.
And we'll get to him. I have something on him anyway.
All right, we've got the linebackers. We got Hassan Reddick as a strong side linebacker. I think he should play weak side linebacker or inside middle linebacker.
I said weak side. That's what I was going with.
Well, yeah.
I would love weak side.
Weak side, inside backer.
Yeah.
I guess around 4-3. But Josh Bynes, not really exciting. I would like to see Scooby Wright play up, and we've seen this guy produce at Arizona. What do they call him?
You mean, are you talking about Cleveland, right?
No, Scooby Wright. What do they call him? I forgot his name. The Devil, I think, is what they call him.
Oh, yeah.
Scooby Wright is a beast, man. He's a special teamer. Just like Josh Bynes, I'm not blown away by Josh Bynes. He's like that dude from Pittsburgh, used to play for the Bears. John Bostic. He's that John Bostic of this team that's definitely out of place. And I may have to correct myself as we go throughout the season just because of the position that he plays on this defense and the opportunities that middle inside linebacker is going to offer. Again, we like going for that weak side linebacker in a 4-3. That's Deion Buchanan. Deion Buchanan has the speed of the team, as well as Hassan Reddick. This is what I'm talking about with these this defensive scheme and the personnel that they have. You've got Marcus Golden and Chandler Jones, both fast dudes, strong. And on the outside, you've got Hassan Reddick and Deion Buchanan, who can get to the flats, who can create turnovers and anticipate the defense. Josh Bynes, not so much. He's really there just to stuff the runs. If you're looking just to stuff the runs, I think Scooby Wright can do that. And you let those two players, Hassan Reddick and Deion Buchanan, play zone coverage while he just focuses on the run.
Yeah. And Deion Buchanan's one of those first guys who was like a safety and linebacker hybrid. And now Mark Barron does it too. And there are several others. I still think Sua Cravens can do that role too. So, again, more nickelback safety, but whatever. But he was one of the first ones that's made that really successful. I mean, you look at their linebacking core. I mean, they got some good first-round picks in there. You know, I love Hassan Reddick. I wanted to draft him. I got sniped on it. I wanted him. I would make a trade for him, but it would probably cost me half my team to get anybody from the guy who owns him. So Deion Buchanan, again, Buck said it. He's a stud. You know, if you can get him where you can. Going into the secondary, you got on the left side, you got Patrick Peterson. Behind him, Jamar Taylor. At strong safety, you got Budda Baker. Behind him, Ezekiel Turner, who is a guy they just basically picked up for free agent after the draft. At free safety, you have Anthony Bethea. Behind him is Rudy Ford. And then the newly acquired Trey Boston's back there. So I'd honestly put Trey Boston over in that second strong safety spot if it's me. Then on the right cornerback spot, you got Brandon Williams. Behind him, Benwicki. Ha! I got that one right. Oh, whatever. Benwicki. I was pretty impressed.
Coming from, they have him from Dallas. Where is he playing for them?
I have no idea.
Carolina.
Okay.
I have no season. You've also got Trey Boston. Thoughts on Trey Boston?
I just mentioned him. I feel like he's going to move over in that strong safety spot and be the backup there if anything happens. And we saw a lot of good things from Trey Boston last year. Him and playing with the dye back there in L.A. I thought that he played well enough that he should have been I feel like a little bit more sought after in the free agent market. But again, look how much depth they have. I mean, I feel like this is a depth move that could pay off dividends if Buda Baker goes down again or Anthony Bethea gets hurt. I mean, he's a guy who can plug right in there and has that experience. On the outside, Patrick Peterson. I mean, he's still Patrick Peterson. The one guy I like on this that they drafted was Christian Campbell out of Penn State. This dude's a 6'1" guy. I think he ran a 4.56 on the draft or in the 40. This is also a guy who I feel like, if I remember my report correctly, he was a gym rat. And I feel like Arizona needs those gym rats, especially with Patrick Peterson because he's a gym rat too. I was kind of hoping that Matthew was going to stay around because I feel like he could have been a good influence on him about how to play a little bit nastier. He was also a guy at Penn State who really attacked off man coverage. That's the one thing I remember about Christian Campbell's tape is off man, he can attack. So I feel like that's going to be a good spot for him where maybe he can move up a little bit. But I think it's great competition. I like depth competition like this, especially in training camp right now. It's a guy who I liked when we were watching him at the Senior Bowl. I mean, he's just, I think, a good cornerback. Yeah. I feel like he's better than a 6th-round pick. I'd have taken him in the 4th.
Fantasy-wise, Hassan Reddick, what are you paying?
Hassan Reddick, what am I paying? It's hard. I like the player so much.
All right, I got a good question. So there are two guys that we've seen not really respected by their own teams, and that is Stephon Anthony and Hassan Reddick. Would you rank them about the same, or would you rank one higher than the other?
But there's so much history there, you know? I like Hassan Reddick a little bit more because I feel like he's going to be a starter and probably keep that spot when he gets it.
Right.
And I feel like he's going to be a stud.
So there is some doubt with Stephon Anthony.
It's just if he gets a chance, man. Like, we've seen it. Like, I saw it at Clemson. We've seen it.
Right. Hassan Reddick, you see the same thing?
Yeah, I saw it when he was at Temple.
Right. So do you see their outcomes given that they're both starting 100% of the snaps or whatever you got to do to isolate it and make them even? You would still rank Hassan Reddick higher?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I saw more traits at Temple that I like more than if we're comparing apples to apples here.
Yeah.
There was more on Reddick's tape that I liked more than I liked on Stephon Anthony's coming out of college. If we're ranking him that way and preparing him that way, because again, Hassan Reddick's been in the league for 1 year.
Yeah.
So we got to par it as that.
All right, Hassan Reddick or Deion Buchanan?
It depends. If we're in a redraft, Buchanan for sure, and then if we're in a dynasty, I would still take Reddick.
Just because I like the value. Just because of the value.
Yeah.
Because I think that you could get Deion Buchanan at a value because, one, he's an older player in a dynasty league. In a redraft league, I think all the eyes are going to be on Deion Buchanan instead of Hassan Reddick because so many people were burned last season. And how many times do you see people that give up on the talent instead of the production? You know, right. People follow that production, and those who do are donors to your league. Mm-hmm. You know, those who know the talent, those are the guys that go out and win championships. You know, and it's where can you get those guys and at what cost? Defensive backs, Buda Baker. Do you see him finishing in the top 20? Is it a possibility?
Yeah, if he doesn't get hurt, absolutely.
Yeah.
Dude's nasty.
Would you rather have him or Antoine Bethea from this team?
I'd rather have Buda Baker. That's because I just like his name more. I just love Buda Baker. I think that kid's got a lot of talent and he's fresher.
Yeah, from Washington.
Yeah.
Pretty much a team that you love covering.
They've produced them. They've recruited so well up there, man. It's ridiculous, and they don't get as much recognition as they should.
Yeah.
You know, they were undefeated for a while 2 years ago, but that fell apart.
So let's say Antoine Bethea gets hurt. Are you picking up Trey Boston right after?
Yes, I already have Trey Boston, but yes, I go pick him up because I feel like Trey Boston would immediately go in.
Yeah.
That guy's got the starting pedigree, man. He did it last year, and I thought he played very well last year.
Where you want to go next, or do you have anything else for these guys?
No, I'm good on these guys. I don't even think there's any offense I necessarily want to talk about. I I mean, Christian Kirk's a guy who everyone's going to overdraft and not get the production out of. Just my own opinion. Josh Rosen, I think, will start by like week 7 because I think Bradford will get hurt at some point in time. He'll probably get hurt right before the season starts, most likely, kind of like a Tony Romo situation. All right, let's go to the the Legion of Doom.
All right, for the Legion of Doom, we have Bobby Wagner with 133 total tackles. Expect him to be the tackle leader next year.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. KJ Wright with 108. This is one of those interesting dynamics for the defense on how 2 linebackers can get over 100 total tackles. Something that we find fascinating. KJ Wright is one of those guys that's often overlooked, much like the Thomas Davises of the world. They're not going to blow up the stat sheet week to week, but they are going to be consistent week to week. Earl Thomas with 88 total tackles. Bradley McDougald, interesting to note because he was missing from the starting lineup with 75. I think given more time, he's going to have more tackles, especially with Cam Chancellor retiring. You got Shaquille, not Shaquem, the rookie, with 59 total. Cam Chancellor with 49. I would go ahead and take those and slap about 10 to 20 on Bradley McDougald. You got Jerron Reed with 45. Sheldon Richardson with 44. Justin Coleman with 42. Michael Bennett with 40. Byron Maxwell with 38. Richard Sherman with 35. Frank Clark with 32. Jeremy Lane with 31. Michael Wilhoit with 30. Terrence Garvin with 25. Nazir Jones with 19. Deion Jordan 18. Interesting stat numbers. You got 9 with Frank Clark and 8.5 with Michael Bennett. Interception leaders. You have a bunch of people tied for 2. Bobby Wagner, Earl Thomas, Justin Coleman, and Richard Sherman. Other than that, what really sticks out to you, Paul?
Oh, man, my love for Shaquem Griffin sticks out to me. I think we both love him. Like, I love his story. I love his play. I think he's a way underrated player. Like, if he had both hands, he would have been a second-round pick.
I think so.
I mean, absolutely. With his speed and talent, he would have been there.
He was handicapped from the salary cap.
No. But I'm just glad he's with his brother because those two play really well together. There's a lot of guys in the league that play better when they have family around. I would have loved to see both the Barber brothers play together at some point in their career. I think that would have been fun to see. But off this, I mean, let's start with the secondary. Because the Legion of Boom has turned into the Legion of Doom and the Legion of Boo-Boos and players that aren't going to be around anymore. So this is really just a lot of rebuilding because you look at the names now. At cornerback, you got Nico Thorpe. Behind him, Brian Maxwell, who somehow is still around in this league. I thought he got busted for something. Did he get busted for like PEDs or something?
Nico Thorpe?
No, Byron Maxwell. I thought he was in trouble for something. Maybe I'm thinking of a different Maxwell. Anyway, I digress. No, there was someone who got arrested, but I think it used to be a former Seattle player. On the right side cornerback, you now have Shaquille Griffin stepping into that starter spot, coming up from nickelback last year with all the injuries. You got Mike Tyson behind him, and then Trey Flowers, who they drafted from Oklahoma State. He was a guy who originally played safety, but they're going to convert him to cornerback. I don't think he's going to be better as a cornerback than he was as a safety in college. Just my own opinion. We'll see how that goes. I just don't see great things. Honestly, I think if he went back to safety, he may be up there with Cedric Thompson backing up Akeem King. Akeem King's in that free safety spot. Again, you're not going to have Earl. They don't even have Earl Thomas on here anymore.
They have him in the reserve spot.
Okay. So you look at Cam Chancellor, who's probably never going to play again. You look at Earl Thomas, who doesn't want to play. It's all gone, and that's what happens. Same thing happened in San Francisco when they went on their big run with Kaepernick and that offense. Eventually stuff fizzles out, and we have now seen the official fizzling out of the Seattle's backfield. Akeem King, I don't know where to rank these guys. I'm literally trying to get as much tape off of training camp this year to see how they're going to use these guys. Mm-hmm. That kind of opens up a little bit of a window for Shaquem Griffin. He played safety in college as well. Mainly linebacker, but he played in the backfield. I feel like this is a guy who can come in and get tackles. A Troy Polamalu type of role. Like a guy when he starts creeping up, he's coming. And he can do that. I feel like he's got the type of body and the type of mentality to do that.
He's definitely got the speed.
Yeah, he's definitely got the speed for sure. But this backfield, again, a lot of it's up in the air. I love Shaquille Griffin. I went and traded for him last year when he was playing really well. He's a guy who I will probably start off and on my cornerback spot. That's how much I like him. Mike Tyson is another guy who, again, backup of him, who may get play at left side. I think he's better than Byron Maxwell is right now. Mike Tyson played good in spells last year. He did get banged up, but I thought he played pretty well in the spots he was given. And then I forgot to mention the nickelback role, who is Justin Coleman, which I think Trey Flowers could go over there and play nickelback a little bit too and kind of balance that out. But again, a lot of stuff is turning around in that backfield, and we're not going to know where it lands till we really start seeing it on the field.
One guy I really like is Lorenzo Jerome. He's a guy coming from San Francisco last season off of the free agency waiver wire. He had 3 picks in 2 different games, or 2 picks in 3 different games last season in the Shrine Game, the NFLPA, and the Senior Bowl. One of those guys that just has a knack for the ball. They play him at free safety. That would be completely awesome. Or strong safety. That would be completely awesome. Again, we talked about Bradley McDougald and his ability to make a lot of tackles. They've got Mo Alexander slated above him. Again, Paul talked about how this is all being shook up right now. If they do start Nico Thorpe, he is a definite add for me over Shaquille Griffin. I think Shaquille Griffin is starting to make a name for himself, especially with the awareness that his brother got in this draft process. A lot of teams are going to be looking at him because of the athlete that his brother is. Other than that, Byron Maxwell is consistently productive whenever he comes in IDP. He's a better IDP player than an NFL player. I see him playing the nickelback spot instead of Justin Coleman if given the opportunity, and he continues to impress the coaches as he always has. I don't have anything else for these D-backs. Again, Lorenzo Jerome is the 4th free safety, just to keep that in mind. Starting left outside linebacker, you got Barkevious Mingo. Where have we seen this before? Him coming from Indy, coming from the Patriots and Cleveland. We see a lot of players that come from Cleveland to the Patriots to Seattle Seahawks. There's some sort of pipeline between these guys. He's got the speed. He doesn't necessarily have the instincts that we'd like to see from a left outside linebacker. Bobby Wagner has it all. He's one of the prototype middle linebackers, right up there with Luke Kuechly. If I were to say that there's one guy that is that prototype, it is Luke. But Bobby Wagner is a close second. One thing that you don't have to worry about with Bobby Wagner is concussions. That's why he's our number 1 middle linebacker this season. A lot less risk. He did play through a lot of injuries last season. You like seeing that because they are consistent and they are present whenever you need them in the fantasy championship. A lot of players will think about their career and they'll be selfish, but seeing Bobby Wagner out there week after week was very exciting from a fantasy aspect. You got KJ Wright. Again, we don't need to beat him over the head. We got Shaquem Griffin behind him. Where they plan on using Shaquem Griffin, I don't know. I think there's a lot of movement going to happen, and with Shaquem Griffin, I think they're going to try and find a spot for him. I have nothing really for the other linebackers. DJ Alexander could push Barkevious Mingo just because Barkevious Mingo struggles to keep a job.
That's true.
I wouldn't be surprised if DJ Alexander, another journeyman, ends up taking that spot, playing that strong side linebacker, and finding a starting gig. I'll jump right into the defensive line, unless you got anything for the middle linebackers.
Oh, I did. I was just looking up stuff. Joshua Perry retired. The kid who was 24. He got his 6th concussion, so he decided to retire.
Where did he go to school? Ohio State.
Oh, okay. I don't remember that. Sorry. I really didn't know where he went to school, so I was like, I don't know. With these linebackers, again, I'll keep giving my love to Shaquem. I think he's going to be a guy who they're going to plug and play. They obviously liked him enough to draft him in the 5th round. I mean, I feel like it's a great place. It's a great place to play with people you know and people who want you. again, Bobby Wagner is going to be the stud. He's going to be a guy you're going to take super high in any draft. KJ Wright's a guy who I think gets overlooked a lot of the time because we just don't think about KJ Wright that much, and that's what happens. Who am I thinking of? He used to play there. Can't think of his name. Jacob Martin, who they drafted in the 6th round. I wouldn't think he's going to get any play, to be fair. But, yeah, other than that, I don't really have that much either, besides Shaquem Griffin. I mean, he's a guy who I'll take a risk and I'll pound the table till I'm proven wrong on this guy. Moving into the defensive line, you have on that left end spot, you got Frank Clark. Behind him, Braden Jackson. Then in the middle left defensive tackle spot, you got Jaron Reed. Behind him, Shamar Stephen. On the right D tackle spot, you have Nazier Jones. And then behind him, you have Tom Johnson. And on the right defensive end, you have Rasheem Green, a rookie who was drafted in the 3rd round. Behind him, Deion Jordan. Interesting notes I would take away from this defensive line is there's a lot of moving pieces. You have Deion Jordan, who's now injured, and he's working week to week. And him and Rasheem are honestly battling for that starting spot. So I feel like with Deion Jordan's injury, that's going to push Rasheem Green into that solidified starting role. I went and made a trade for him because I wanted to draft him, but I got snaked on it because I was going to take him in the 12th. Someone took him in the 11th. It happens. But I went and got him because I see a lot of talent from this kid. I really liked him when I did film and did all my film study. He was just a guy that just stuck out from USC, and he's got the value. And he's only 21 years old, and I feel like that's great dynasty value because, again, that's what we play as dynasty for the main part. I like him, man. I think he's going to might actually finally get a defensive end that gets more numbers, which, again, Frank Clark has put away numbers, but he's not as talked about. The one I'm really sad about on this whole deal is Malik McDowell. Yep. He's a guy that I love coming out of Michigan State. Michigan State. Sorry, I blanked on that. But he was a guy who got in an ATV accident. They actually waived him on Thursday. It's just sad, man. I think he has a crap ton of potential. Yeah. I'm hoping someone take a risk and maybe he moves through it. And I hope for the best for him. I didn't know he was dropped until just a little bit ago, so I'm working through my feelings right now, as Drake would say. I'm just working on my feelings. Another guy who I really like is Poona Ford, dude out of Texas. He was really impressive in the collegiate games, the bowl games after the bowl games. He was a guy who I thought played well enough to warrant being drafted. He was picked up off the free agent afterwards. I like Poona Ford, man. I think he's a guy who can plug in a big body and he can work. He's a bull rusher. That's what he does. He can push the middle of a pile. I really liked watching him play at Texas.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same feelings for Poona Ford. Rasheem Green's going to be that guy that a lot of people are going to go after, and I think they're going to overpay just because he's that new name rookie that everybody expects to make money in their fantasy league, and Frank Clark is that guy that's going to be overlooked. Mm-hmm. You agree?
Yeah, that's what I said. I said Frank Clark gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think Rasheem Green, again, fantasy value, I only paid a 10th round pick to get him, so I'm okay with that. I'll take that all day.
Redraft, I don't know that.
Oh, I don't know about redraft. That's a low pick for me in redraft.
For Frank Clark, right?
Yeah, for Frank Clark, and Rasheem Green's a couple rounds after him, just because I don't know what I'm going to get until I see it. Right. I mean, I still think Rasheem Green's better than Deion Jordan, but I mean, who's really drafting Deion Jordan?
Right. Yeah. All right, the last team up is the Los Angeles Rams. Let's run through them. You got Alec Ogletree with 95 total tackles. He is gone. Mark Barron with 86. John Johnson with 75. Tremaine Johnson, 65. Michael Brockers, this is interesting, with 55. LaMarcus Joyner with 49. Nickel Roby Coleman with 49. Aaron Donald with 41. Notice that Brockers has more than Donald. Kayvon Webster with 38. Corey Littleton with 36. Connor Barwin with 34, Robert Quinn with 32, Samson Ibukum 31, Blake Countess with 25, Ethan Westbrooks, who was hurt, with 23, Matt Longacre 23, and Bryce Hager with 12. Total sacks, you've got 11 with Aaron Donald. Number 2, you got Robert Quinn with 8.5. Interceptions, the leader was Mark Barron and LaMarcus Joyner with 3. So I did point out that Aaron Donald did not have as many tackles as the defensive end Michael Brockers for this team. And that's interesting to note because if you're new to IDP and you're jumping in, everybody's going to go after a guy like Aaron Donald just because that name cachet.
He's ripped. He's
right.
Freaking chiseled, man.
He's got that six-pack that every girl wants.
It's a man pack, man. It's
right.
a man pack.
He's pretty good at ping pong, too.
Yeah, he is. Good job, man. I like that.
So, with Aaron Donald, a lot of people are going to overdraft. They're going to pay that hefty price just because he's a guy that they know. Don't overpay for Aaron Donald. I believe in our ranks we have him, 10th?
I believe so, yeah.
15th?
That sounds about right.
That's about where he finishes year to year. One of the most productive defensive tackles, though, that being said. Michael Brockers, if you can start a defensive lineman in general, take him over Aaron Donald because of the value, because of the production that you're going to get. And a lot of people aren't going to know much about Michael Brockers. I know a lot of people that play IDP and don't value Michael Brockers highly enough. Go ahead and take us in, Paul.
All right. Of course, you got Dominican Sue, who's never really been super a fantasy stud, consistent sometimes at best. On this backside of this line, I really like Justin Lawler coming over from SMU. I think they drafted and got in free agency a lot of good pieces that you could take a risk on. And there's just a lot. And we'll get into it more in the linebackers. That's what I'm more excited about. But, I mean, you also got John Franklin, who they drafted in the 4th. You got Sebastian Joseph Day, who they drafted in the 6th. But I think Justin Lawler is a guy who reminds me a lot of I don't know how to describe him. It's kind of a less athletic Aaron Campman. Aaron Campman had a lot of finesse moves that he could use back in his day. Justin Lawler's more of a guy who is kind of like...
I'm going to ask you who the hell Campman is.
Aaron Campman?
Yeah, just trying to help the listeners.
He used to be a defensive end for Green Bay. He was a guy who... Well, don't look at me like that. I'm telling you, I see a lot of the same traits. He was a guy who could come off the edge, a guy who was really underappreciated, but he was a guy who produced sacks. And he could get in and get those sneaky pass rushes and get those cleanups. And I feel like Justin Lawler, given a chance, could be that guy who could get some of them sneaky cleanups. Again, he's got to fight through a lot of good talent to get on the field. So it may just be a wait-and-see scenario. But out of all those guys that they drafted for that defensive line, I really like Justin Lawler. I think he's worth a late pick on, or just chill and wait for waivers. But I think he's got future starting potential down the road, 2 or 3 years, probably 3 years. Moving into the linebackers, kind of some new faces, kind of some old faces. You have at that inside linebacker spot, of course, got Mark Barron, guy who used to be safety. Now he's a linebacker, guy produces numbers. Right now they have Bryce Hagger, guy who we've consistently seen. Always wanted to see the next step, never seen the next step, and maybe we'll get to see the next step. I don't know. Just take it step by step, day by day with this guy. But he's always been a career special teamer. That's just what he's been. He's produced like 5 tackles a year. So I think he'll be able. Yeah, I think he'll be able to hopefully double his numbers this year. You got behind him. You got Rameek Wilson, who's a guy who I think can actually fit in here pretty well and start getting some snaps. And then on the outside linebacker spot, you got Matt Longacre and Samson Mbakam. I always mess up his last name.
Ogbania Okoronkwo.
Not him. I wasn't talking about him. I was talking about the starter.
That was pretty damn good,
yeah,
though.
That was pretty good. Just call him Obo, because that's what I was doing. I was like, Ogbani Okarakpo. But, yeah, he's a guy coming up from Oklahoma who we had ranked pretty high in our defensive end spot. And I think outside linebacker spot as well. He was in both spots. But also Trayvon Young, who they also drafted in the 6th round. I think he's got a good shot at mixing into that linebacking core. But a guy that I really love, actually the next 2 guys I really love, DeGray Scales, just because honestly his fantasy name value and the fact that he's pretty much just out of Game of Thrones. And then also Micah Kaiser. These 2 guys we had ranked in when we did our rankings on the inside linebacker spot, we had DeGray Scales at number 10 and Micah Kaiser at number 12. So we had those guys ranked really high at all of these inside linebacker spots. I know that from what I remember on DeGray Scale or Micah Kaiser, he was not that good in zone. That's something he really had to work on coming out of college. But these 2 guys, I'm still surprised DeGray Scales didn't get drafted. I thought he had plenty of talent to get drafted.
Yeah, at least in the 7th round.
Yeah, at least. Like, give him something.
From the Oakland Raiders over Indianapolis Colts.
Somebody, right? I think these two guys
We see you, Brendan.
could play. I think these two could play into a rotational role. I think DeGray really got that. When I see DeGray I think linebacker. Just like I said about Blake Martinez and other guys, he feels like a linebacker when I watch him.
Yeah.
Like, an old school, get down, hit you, tackle you linebacker. I think Micah Kaiser's more of that athlete who's going to be able to make the kind of finesse moves that you need to get around, but he's still going to make tackles. I like these two guys. I think it's great depth. I want to see how this plays out. And then throw in Obo and Trayvon Young. I mean, you got a lot of mixture in there. Yeah. And I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think Samson Ibakum is going to be that strong side outside linebacker. Definitely the dude that you want taking on that wave. You've also got Agbani Okoronkwo, who's going to be rushing the passer. That's really what his specialty is. We saw, whenever we watched film on him, that he was pretty good at dipping around the edge, but that was about it in bull rushing. Really limited toolbox, Yeah. Bryce Hager, again, Paul talked about how he was a career special teamer. In college, the dude is just like Josie Jewell, man. 130, 140 tackles, total tackles per season. You have him and you have the dude from KU. Why am I blanking on that?
Henney.
Ben Heaney, yeah. Both top tacklers in their draft class. Both probably going to have the same fate at the end of their career.
Yeah.
But I think Ramik Wilson is that sneaky guy that can go ahead and push Bryce Hager for a starting role, just because he's got speed. A lot of Chief fans around here talk about how he can't cover. I thought that he could cover well. I think the problem with Kansas City was they had Eric Berry out and the safeties couldn't help. So a lot of people expect a linebacker to be able to cover the entire field. That is simply not the case, especially whenever they're covering a running back. And the running back typically has better moves to put them in or out of position. Really the only linebacker, this is just talking football in general, really the only linebacker that can cover anybody is Jamie Collins. He's one of the rare linebackers that can do it all in pass coverage. So expecting a guy like Ramik Wilson and having this false narrative of, he needs to be able to do this, that, and the other, that's not a linebacker's position. They have a specific zone that they have to cover and they need help above them. So he gets knocked a lot. Whenever he does play, he's a huge tackler. He helps in the run. He helps in the pass. Most of the guys that he does wrap up, he takes them down immediately. And why is that so important? Because those convert into tackles. Those don't become missed opportunities. Mark Barron, safety playing linebacker, a cheat code that we always talk about just because of that speed. A lot of things we see from Deion Buchanan, we see from Mark Barron. You're going to pay a premium for him. But notice he's limited because of his size. Because of his inability to go through offensive linemen. He has to run around them and use that speed to his advantage. The grayscales, I don't really see pushing Ramik Wilson or Bryce Hager for a starting spot. I think he's a project, especially where they paid for him.
I think he's going to make a living this year off special teams.
Right.
But I think eventually he'll push somebody.
Right. Where are you going to go next? Defensive line?
Thought we already covered D-line.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go more in depth, I'm cool going back.
Ethan Westbrooks, I think he's underrated, but he's not better than Michael Brockers, and I think that needs to stand where it's at. They got Ndamukong Suh, obviously. He's going to play the nose tackle. Tenzel Smart, he's a guy that's often overlooked. I liked his tape last year whenever he got thrown into the rotation. I thought he looked good. But it's one of those things. Is he going to get much playing time over Dominique Easley? And are you going to pay for a guy like Dominique Easley, or are you going to buy Michael Brockers where you can?
I'd rather buy Brockers.
Right. And Dominique Easley is going to move back because they don't even have Aaron Donald in here.
Yeah, he's on the did not report list.
So, Brockers, Suh, and Donald.
Yeah, that defensive line pie is pretty thin to get a slice out of, for most of these guys.
So, you want to talk about D-backs?
Yeah, sure, let's do it.
What we got left?
Yeah, all right, on that left side, you got Marcus Peters coming over from Kansas City. Behind him, Troy Hill. And then you have at that strong safety spot, you got John Johnson. Behind him, Blake Countess. At that free safety, you got LaMarcus Joyner. Behind him, Marquise Christian. And then at that right cornerback spot, you got Aqib Talib coming over from Denver. So they're basically taking from the AFC West and then putting in the NFC West. And then behind him, you have Kevin Peterson. In that nickelback, you got Roby Coleman.
Roby Coleman, the nickel. Playing the nickel.
The nickel. I was waiting to see if you were going to say a dime piece, but...
Nah.
On this backfield, I think it's going to be interesting watching Aqib Talib and Marcus Peters play together, who are essentially the same mental IQ together, but they're also really good football players. And what I mean by mental IQ is they get in fights all the time. Like, I pray that they play people that they hate on the same team, because I want them both to snatch some gold chains and then want them to throw a flag in the stands.
Or throw to each other, monkey in the middle.
Yeah, just monkey in the middle. You got Marcus Peters, who's got teeth as yellow as a flag anyway, and then Aqib Talib, who just can't keep his hands off wide receivers after the play. I mean, I think it's potential to be super nasty. Don't get me wrong. I think the talent with Marcus Peters there and Aqib Talib has not yet lost his step yet. I haven't seen it yet. So these two guys on the outside, it makes it kind of like, wow, they're going to have to feed the ball over the middle.
The problem I see with this entire team, again, we talked about Johnson and Joyner. Those guys are locks. They're the cap on that defense, and then you got the edge with Peters and Talib, and you have the defensive line. But their weakness is their linebackers. I don't see how... You got Mark Barron, and he's pretty much going to lead the team in tackles. That's about it. Sampson, Ibakum, or Bryce Hager. I'd love to see Bryce Hager get a lot of run stuffs, but I see him losing his job throughout the season. I really do.
I could too. I agree. I'm just surprised they didn't go out and get a linebacker. Like, what if Navarro Bowman would have gone there? Just in the meantime. Yeah, I mean, just why couldn't they added him? At least give him competition in training camp with all these rookies you draft, right? And there's some other guys that they could have gone after. Kendricks,
Michael, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that would have fit in there, I feel like. But again, they spent a lot of stuff. I mean, they traded up to get Brandon Cooks on that offensive side, who I'm super happy I traded for now that he's out of New England. I mean, I think their offense is going to be fun to watch, man. I can't wait to see Green Bay play him on that Thursday night game, man. I'm super excited for it. I think that's going to be a fun one if everyone's healthy. I would love it. Especially, I don't know, I put a lot more stock in Brandon Cooks than a lot of people do. That's because I loved him in college so much. He's one of those guys that you just watch for so long and you just like him regardless where he goes. But, I mean, the Rams, do you think they're a potential NFC champs? Do you think you see them going to Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, why not?
With what they got there, especially on defense?
Yeah, especially whenever you go out and buy your team on a quarterback with a rookie contract.
Pretty much, man. I mean, the Eagles kind of did the same thing. Had a strong defense, rookie who led him for a while until he went down. So I think that'll be a team to watch for sure, especially on the defensive side. Watch them in training camp. We're going to be giving you updates too. We're going to do the X's and O podcast right after this one. So then we'll have that on there. So don't forget to go subscribe, idpfantasyempire.com. Hit that subscribe button. Get it in. And as always, start building your empire
Today.